Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I was going through some of my property that I'm going through here, there in boxes. I ran across this model or this plane that I had purchased for quite some time ago because this is the anti-gravity plane that the actual, now I'm not sure, is it a B-1 bomber, B-2 bomber, this wing design that is so popular right now. And this is the actual anti-gravity aircraft I saw from 500 feet away. There was no mistaking it. There was no question of what it was or how it worked. It was there, and the story is plain and simple. I was going to one of my radionic builders that I worked with at that particular time who lived in Banning, California. Now, Banning, California is a little town just before you reach Palm Springs, California. It's kind of a little in-between place there, which has been there for many years, has a lot of retirement community people there, and is a very interesting place. I should say a non-interesting place in general. It's an old town, probably built in the 50s, and slowly has grown over the years and still is pretty small. But this place is a unique little place because it tends to be a little cooler than when you go another 10 miles into Palm Springs because it's kind of windy there and you get the cool, somewhat beach air there. But this is where my builder lived. He was an old guy, retired there. And I had just picked up some equipment and dropped off some parts there. And for one reason or another, I'm not sure why, because I rarely did that. I decided, and I also at that time had my wife with me, which is rare to begin with, to go there. I decided, well, let's drive through the city of Banning, if you can call it the city. The main street with the donkey carts and, where you tie up your horse before you go in the saloon. So the whole idea is that I decided to drive through that town, and it was an unusual day that day. The weather was very strange. It was raining, which is difficult to begin with, but it had a horrible thunderstorm was rolling through the area. Now, Banning is, if you buy how the crow flies, if we can say it that way, it means by straight line, if you could function that way. Banning is in between San Diego and the Air Force bases and Navy bases there, and 29 Palms Marine Base. These are two huge military facilities. So it's probably, as you said, by how the crow flies, probably 30, 40 miles to San Diego, and probably similar distance to 29 Palms Marine Corps Base. So it's right in the middle there. But what was happening that day, which was quite odd, was the fact that it was a horrible thunderstorm. Very, very bad thunder, lightning, etc. And I come to understand with these things when I started to research this, and several people have cited these kind of anti-gravity planes. Now, there's no noise. It's not hovering like a actual helicopter. It's sitting there. This is anti-gravity. So I'm driving through the town there, and there's a big lightning storm. There's nobody on the streets. There's nobody there whatsoever. I was the only car on the road. It was a little bit late in the day, even though it was summertime, still very light. And of course, this is a little town. I probably was after 5 o'clock or whatever. So everybody was closed up in this little retirement town in general. And so I was the only one on the road. I was going through there. I was working my way back to where I lived in the Palm Springs area. And what did I see? All of a sudden, to my right, in what was an open lot between, it was a pretty big open lot between buildings in the downtown area. What do I see to my left but this plane hovering, if you can call it that, in the open lot? Kind of facing me like this. I was coming with my car like this, and I looked to the left there, as did my wife. It's pretty noticeable. This is a pretty big plane. It's black like this in a place, and you had no way to actually not recognize it. Now, I saw this, and of course, I'm driving a car. You just can't hit the brakes, which I probably should have, and spun around and did it. You don't even think of these things. I mean, people think about that, and even as a professional researcher, you generally don't, oh, let's grab a camera, let's hit the brakes, let's go around. So you see this off, I saw this off to the left as I was going down there. And then it registered, a few seconds, maybe 5 or 6 seconds. And then I started to look back again and was going to turn around, and it was gone. Plain and simple. As I said, it wasn't just me. This was also, I had my wife in the car who witnessed the exact same thing. So, well, as I said, one of the few times. It's almost like this was designed in some aspect. Why would I drive through the town at that time? Never did that before. Why was my wife with me? Everything else. So all this is quite interesting, but certainly it comes to the fact of how these things, synchronicity, kind of come together. But it was irrefutable. It was this type of a plane. Very, very noticeable cabin here where the pilots are, and the very wing shape of it. So it's not something that you can misconstrue as something else. Doesn't look like a car, doesn't look like a mobile home, certainly doesn't look like somebody's house. And of course, it disappeared as quick as it appeared. So I'm assuming that once it was down there, and particularly that it saw my car coming, that they clicked on their invisibility as well. Because these planes have invisibility abilities as well, where they just click it on and you don't see them. Now, whether it stayed there or not, but it was gone as far as I was concerned. It was a rotten, windy, lightning day. It wasn't a thing that I was going to jump out of the car and run around. There was no reason to. I looked back. Was turning around, and it was gone. As simple as that. Now, I do came to understand that this is a problem with the anti-gravity crafts, that they have a sensitivity, which is kind of ironic, I guess, to lightning. So when these things have a problem functioning when there is lightning around, which makes sense. It could affect the actual system of how these things work. Now, remember, this is not helicopter. This is not hovering. This is standing in the sky with none sound whatsoever. So, the reason I saw it is that it's a big, giant black plane sitting on the ground. You can't miss it. It's impossible. So you just can't miss a giant object like this, and certainly is something you would notify as a wing plane, one of the advanced models that was there. So the whole idea is that, and of course, as you said, it fit into the fact that there was this giant lightning storm, which apparently was not that high up, but it would be at the regular range if you were kind of flying low, the lightning storm. So they had to get out of it. And I guess it was easier just to go down instead of to go up out of it or whatever. It's hard to probably go up out of lightning storms. It's easier to go below them and whatever. I'm assuming the pilots knew what they were doing. And here they are, popped into this field. Maybe they had to show themselves to do some work before buzzing out again. So here's another fascinating story, people. This is exactly what the plane looks like. As I said, I think this is a B-2 bomber. Not exactly sure what they call them, but this was the exact plane that I saw. And I saw it there long enough to identify it, and that it was sitting there just hover. I don't know, it was about 10, 15 feet off the ground, maybe more. It was hard to spin around, because by the time I spun around to investigate a little further, it was gone. But what a fascinating story. So I've seen that. The problem with all this is that, first of all, a lot of people have seen this and had similar experiences. So it's not whether this is true or not. It's been verified by many. And that's how science works, Lots of people agree it's a fact. So the whole idea is that what this brings up is the fact that, and this, remember, was at least 25 years ago. And these must have been in development maybe for another 10 or 20 years before that they were using these. So you're talking about 40, 50 years ago, they had anti-gravity technologies that the military was using. And of course, we were paying for, but you don't get no info. So what's frightening is, what else do they have? this brings up, after all the speculation and being in the business of researching this and selling research reports on time travel, extraterrestrials, advanced technologies, free energy, etc. That was going on for, there was a big boom in the 90s through 2010 approximately, where everybody was into all this stuff. It was very big, and we were selling huge amounts of information on this, and so people could research what was going on. And we collected all this data. But what comes up is that if this is real, and they've talked about having anti-gravity for a while, if this is true, how much of all the other stuff is true? How much about interplanetary, I'm not talking galactic, but interplanetary travel that has been stated to be real by the head of Lockheed Skunk Work, who when retired stated that as a retirement dinner, that we already have interplanetary travel. What about time travel? What about cures for cancer? What about free energy? Well, you can bet your bottom dollar all of that is real. Now, how real it is and to what level of development it is, you as the public are being cheated for the profits of very corrupt rich people, politicians, and of course the horrific military, who has absolutely no credibility whatsoever and has done absolutely nothing. So, what is going on? What is happening? Are there underground bases? Are there numerous alien races that are here and visiting us? A lot of people claim they look exactly like us. Then they like to have other stories. And of course, the tens of thousands of abduction stories, the millions of sightings. What does all this mean? One of the problems is that a lot of these, quote, UFO sightings are governmental craft, particularly if they're V-shaped, which is very common, because you wouldn't use a V-shaped craft in space. There's no atmosphere in space, people. So to build a Star Trek spaceship is really kind of silly. You don't need that. It would be more like Battlestar Galactica, which had shapes that weren't aerodynamic. There's no atmosphere in space. Like there's no atmosphere in Mars, so you can't really colonize it. So the whole idea is all these things are not shocking to a select group of people who are in on it, whether it's a whole bunch of Lockheed workers and other things. But the other things we have to understand is that there seems to be a misunderstanding that you can't keep anything secret. Dead men tell no tales. You ever heard that? I think they even made a movie of that. The bottom line is that they will destroy you, your family, and everything else, and you will disappear, and your family will disappear, even the house you live in. And there has been cases of this that have just disappeared because people have broken the secrecy vows. So the bottom line is that secrets are kept, and they're kept to the highest degree. And if necessary, you will be thrown in prison, killed, whatever, and they will take your entire family out if necessary. After all, they are military. What do they try to do? They're not very good at it, except killing Americans, is their job is to kill people. That's what the military does. So all of this is, don't think that secrets are kept. They're kept for centuries, by the way, centuries. We now have secrets that have been kept. So the whole idea is that, and secrets go back to even the Civil War, where we still have classified secrets going on for whatever reason. So it goes on and on with all this stuff. So it's not the fact that this is real. It's not the fact that I personally saw it with hundreds of other people at different places and times. It's what this means in the bigger picture. What is really going on? What really is the technology? And this is never, ever going to be released to the public, regardless of goofball band members that think they have ins that show nothing after years of being in business, that they're going to release information in this area is just a complete joke. It will never be released. There's no reason to do it, just like we're never going to know what all these weapons are and all the stuff that we see today in action in primitive conventional wars that have been going on in the Middle East for over 50 years, and recent wars that are going on in the Ukraine right now. All of the types of weapons and things they're using there are primitive conventional weapons. There's certainly much bigger weapons, but the bottom line, if these things are used, the game is over in terms of you have to admit what you've done. And secondly, the destructive power is generally something that gives you more negativity than positivity. After all we have to do is look at that war where the Russians were attacked, where their citizens were being murdered, and everybody wants to cry for the Nazi Ukrainians. So it's the same old story, people. Nothing new there either. But the whole idea is that we have to look at the bigger picture here. Just as the atomic bomb was kept from all the presidents, which is kind of shocking if you think about it, the military took all this money, was doing all this special research, and they were telling nobody about it. And why they wouldn't tell the presidency, I have no idea. So they operated independently to completely use billions, maybe trillions of dollars to build a horrible, destructive weapon, and nobody knew about it up in the political arena, which are supposed to be people that represent the average man, including the president. That's what I find very objectionable. That should never have been started without the actual support of the president himself and knowing what's going on to spend such huge amounts of manpower and money on something that is acceptable or not acceptable. But we have much worse weapons than the nuclear bomb, people. But that's not the point here either. But here it is, people. Real anti-gravity. So wherever these planes are, and there are other anti-gravity planes, wherever these planes are, there are thousands of people that see it, that know about the anti-gravity. There's pilots that use it, mechanics that work on it, and there are thousands, there may be tens of thousands of people who know about this intimately as military employees. Somebody had to build this plane. Somebody has to fuel it. Somebody has to make the tires on it. The point is all this stuff, it's endless of how many people really know what's going on, or at least suspect what's going on there as well. But they're never, ever going to talk about it because you will be pounced on by the unlaw enforcement people that are in our government. Sad, true, and scary. Until next time.